The story of Venezuela's hyperinflation, the death of its economy. Welcome to Penny Investors, where future millionaires come to get inspired. If you enjoy our videos, please do not hesitate to hit that like and subscribe button, and turn on the notifications, so that you don't miss out on new videos we post. You can also follow us on X, @FanInvestors1. The story of Venezuela's economy revolves around its extensive oil reserves and the profound influence they exert. Each time you filled up your gas tank, a portion of your spending indirectly contributed to Venezuela's economy. Venezuelan petroleum permeates numerous facets of daily life, from the asphalt on highways to the rubber in tires, plastics in electronics, and even personal items like shoes, TVs, and shampoo. This economic scenario is marked by peculiarities. Venezuelans, for instance, receive a $50 tank of gas essentially for free. Those residing in the slums around Caracas struggle to find basic necessities like food and toiletries, yet they possess satellite TV and even finance cosmetic surgeries for their teenage daughters. In 2010, a Venezuelan could exchange currency in Paris and return with the equivalent of 7 years' worth of minimum wage earnings. Savings are rare. Money is spent quickly. Hotels in Venezuela can be either the most expensive or the cheapest in the world, depending on currency exchange rates. Despite having the world's largest proven oil reserves, by 2017, the average citizen had lost 8.7 kilograms due to food shortages. The country imports almost everything it consumes, and its once thriving economy has plummeted, making Venezuela the poorest nation in the Western Hemisphere, despite once being wealthier than the United Kingdom. This dramatic economic narrative is fundamentally rooted in Venezuela's abundant crude oil and its corrupting influence on those in power. The country's wealth, combined with corruption, has led to an economic catastrophe, making it one of the most unusual economic stories in the world. Jimenez set forth his grand ambitions. The goal was to showcase Venezuela's modern infrastructure, luxurious hotels, and top-notch restaurants to impress foreigners. To achieve this, the leader provided substantial loans to corporations and subsidized their expenses. Additionally, he allocated significant funds to the military to maintain their support. However, flaws in this ambitious plan began to emerge. Major projects were plagued by waste, corruption, and bribery. The construction of new highways, for instance, far exceeded reasonable costs. State-owned industries operated at a loss, and public amenities fell short of expectations. Yet, the tipping point was the failure to meet promises made to the military. In January 1958, the leader's closest military advisors urged him to leave, prompting a hasty departure to the Dominican Republic with his family and suitcases full of cash. At this juncture, Venezuela's economy and society exhibited peculiar behavior. The highly overvalued bolivar detrimentally impacted sectors unrelated to petroleum. State-run businesses, while employing tens of thousands, suffered from low productivity, yet offered high wages. The international price of oil became the sole economic determinant. Success in business largely depended on luck tied to oil prices. This environment discouraged diligence, as the main objective became securing a high-paying government position or finding ways to siphon off government oil revenue. Despite extensive social spending and investment in state-run corporations, the lack of economic diversity led to widespread unemployment. To counteract political backlash due to soaring unemployment, food prices were mandated to remain extremely low. This, however, squeezed the struggling agricultural sector, as prices failed to allow for profits. Venezuelans adapted to their unique circumstances, with a second attempt at democracy facilitated by a pact between major political parties. However, the abnormal conditions and abundant oil revenue posed challenges. The resulting democracy lacked political accountability, as it didn't rely on the population for taxes. The president wielded unchecked power, leading to authoritarian tendencies and corruption permeating every level of government. Despite these challenges, Venezuela's economy experienced rapid growth. Successive presidents worked to gain more revenue from oil companies, culminating in the formation of OPEC in the 1960s. This shift allowed nations, rather than companies, to dictate prices and outputs. In 1973, the Yom Kippur War triggered a total oil embargo, causing oil prices to surge. Venezuela reaped triple the oil profits, but this influx of capital proved overwhelming for the nation. The ensuing efforts to manage the windfall led to escalating inflation. In 1974, Venezuelans realized that keeping money in banks resulted in rapid devaluation. Banks were compelled to maintain low loan rates, making spending and borrowing more favorable than saving. The middle class expanded substantially, yet few comprehended the fragile foundation of their economy. The government's attempts to implement a savings fund for excess oil revenue fell short of its intended purpose, instead serving as a financial reserve for future leaders. By 1983, Venezuela faced a crisis as oil prices plummeted. Inflation soared, prompting a dramatic devaluation of the bolivar. With an economy reliant on imports, the sudden increase in the cost of living became unsustainable. To curb panic withdrawals of foreign currency, capital controls were enforced, accompanied by fixed exchange rates. Venezuela, once dependent on the world, could no longer meet its financial obligations. As the 1980s progressed, inflation ran rampant, leading to increased corruption, bribery, and reliance on the black market. The government struggled to manage the economic turmoil. In 1989, President Perez implemented severe economic policies to halt the collapse, resulting in widespread protests and violence. Poverty levels surged, exposing the staggering corruption within the government. Former presidents faced embezzlement charges, while foreign companies profited from bribery. The significance of saving and investing oil wealth was lost on many, who believed life was better under authoritarian rule. In 1992, a failed socialist military takeover was attempted by a paratrooper named Hugo Chávez, who would later become a prominent figure in opposition to corruption. Under the subsequent president, Rafael Caldera, Chávez was eventually released. Over the next 6 years, Venezuela's economic situation deteriorated significantly. A banking crisis emerged due to a lack of regulations, resulting in the loss of 11% of the country's GDP. Inflation skyrocketed, surpassing 100%. The call for change resonated throughout society, and Hugo Chávez emerged as a rising political figure. He was elected in 1998 with a promise to address decades of corruption. Chávez, born into poverty, climbed the military ranks during the campaign against leftist guerrilla fighters in the 1970s. However, his military career saw a shift towards leftist ideologies, leading him to form a secret organization with like-minded officers advocating for a socialist government in Venezuela. At the time of his election, nearly half of all Venezuelans lived in poverty, corruption was rampant, and inequality was at an all-time high. Although Chávez professed a belief in democracy and pledged to uphold private property rights during his campaign, he also expressed admiration for Fidel Castro and socialist Cuba, even hosting Castro's 75th birthday celebration. Eager for change, voters granted Chávez the authority to rewrite the constitution, establishing a new Congress filled with his allies. The country was renamed the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, and Chávez initiated what he termed the Bolivarian Revolution. In 2001, he enacted 49 new laws, granting the state the power to seize land and break up large agricultural estates. Additionally, a new petroleum law was introduced, paving the way for increased state involvement in the oil industry. Although PDVSA, the state-owned oil company, operated with some independence, it opened its doors to foreign companies, providing favorable terms while still maintaining significant control over Venezuela's oil. This arrangement was criticized as a veiled form of privatization. Discontent grew within PDVSA as Chávez appointed loyalists to the company's board, even those lacking experience in the oil industry. This led to a coup against Chávez, briefly unseating him. However, thousands of PDVSA employees declared a total strike, halting oil production for 2 months and causing the country to lose billions in revenue. In response, Chávez purged almost 20,000 employees, labeling them and their supporters as enemies of the state. To combat the economic fallout, Chávez re-implemented exchange controls and established Khedive, similar to the earlier program Ricati. Price controls were enforced, and banks were required to provide cheap loans to key industries and individuals. The early 2000s witnessed a surge in oil prices due to high demand from rapidly developing countries like China. By 2008, oil prices had risen by an astounding 600%. However, instead of saving excess oil revenue for future stability, Chávez used it to fund extensive social programs, known as missions, which provided subsidies for food, housing, and jobs to the poor. Imports became more affordable, leading to increased consumer spending. Chávez continued his mission to establish 21st-century socialism by nationalizing major industries and raising taxes on foreign companies. He declared an economic war on savage neoliberal capitalists, attributing past economic troubles to foreign influence. By the time of Chávez's passing, Venezuela held the highest revenue from oil extraction in the world, with 90% of the profits from each barrel going to the state. However, Chávez did not invest in productivity-boosting economic policies, and his efforts to revitalize the agricultural sector fell short. The flow of dollars was restricted, leading to a thriving black market. Venezuelans grappled with hyperinflation, causing them to take out loans and make extravagant purchases. The economy teetered on the brink of collapse. In 2008, oil prices plummeted, and by 2014, Venezuela struggled to import essential resources. Unlike other oil-rich nations, Venezuela had not saved for a rainy day. Its economy was overly reliant on oil revenue, and it lacked diversification for productivity. The nation faced a severe crisis, marked by skyrocketing inflation and scarcity of basic goods. Millions of Venezuelans fled, and by 2019, inflation had reached an alarming 65,000%. The subsequent leader, Nicolas Maduro, continued to follow Chávez's principles, eroding what remained of the democratic system. Venezuela's people suffered more than ever, a stark reminder that mismanaged wealth can be more detrimental than having none at all. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed our videos, please do not hesitate to hit that like and subscribe button, and turn on the notifications, so that you don't miss out on new videos we post. You can also follow us on X, @FanInvestors1.